Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome to the third video in the series on setting up a web server and hosting a website off of Google's cloud platform. By this point, I think we should be fairly acclimated with what's going on, so I'm kind of just going to jump right into it. This will be the second to last video. This last portion, there's quite a bit to it, quite a bit of steps. It's nothing very complicated, but there are quite a bit of steps, and I just made a decision. We'll break it down into two more videos, this one plus one more, to kind of cover all the last steps to get everything up and running. So referring back to the first two videos, we're going to be working with your domain page today. We created this in the first video, so this should be set up with whatever your particular domain that you purchased. And we're also going to be setting up some more settings in our server, just to get it all up and configured properly. So we're going to jump right into it. First things first, make sure that you're on your proper project here. My project being Ferro Quality Carpentry. And then we're going to go back into our compute engine, virtual machine instance. And the first thing we're going to do when our instance pops up is we're going to connect back into the command terminal. Let's refresh it. So yes, we're gonna start by jumping into the command terminal, and we're gonna set some ownership rights and some permissions that's gonna allow us to navigate through the server. We're gonna have to move some files. We're gonna have to copy some files. As we can say out of the box, these permissions are not set, so it'll give you denied access to certain portions of it. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So let's connect into the command prompt. Once this command prompt gets up and running, I have my little cheat sheet of commands over here that we're going to be working off of. So I will put these commands in the description so you can just copy and paste instead of having to pause and try and figure it out. I'm going to try and make it as painless as possible. So we're going to begin by gaining root access. Super user do su. There's our root access. The first command we're going to issue is going to be this command right here. And pay attention, this is my username. Whatever your Gmail account is, say it's joeblow@gmail.com. Well, when you set up your membership in the cloud platform, it's all, your username is based off your Gmail address. So for this particular field here, you're gonna have to plug in whatever your username is. It also shows you right here, Jovan Tone, so you'll see what your username is. It should be fairly straightforward. So back to our commands here. So we're gonna copy this command, which is gonna change the ownership of, well, to put it, I tried going through this in another video explaining each step of these Linux commands. It's kind of outside the scope of this video. Just know that you're granting your username ownership rights over this directory and all of its subdirectories, is the best way I can explain that. Nonetheless, let's get in here and we will paste it. And in this command prompt, you'll know when your command executes properly by it's just gonna return you to a new line. If there was some type of error, it'd let you know. So by me issuing this command, I pasted it and it automatically executed it. Brought us down to the next line, which lets us know that this command did execute properly. So let's go back into our notepad. What we're going to do here is modify some permissions Permissions are things like read file, write file, execute file. It grants permissions to a user level, a group level, and to a public level. In a nutshell, that's what it does. So we're going to copy this, go back into our terminal, paste it, it executed. Final thing we're going to do is now we're gonna copy our IP address. This is kind of from the last video. I'll show you guys what's going on. So this is our external IP address right here. So what we're going to do for testing purposes, we're going to copy that IP address, we're going to paste it into your browser, and it should take us to this page right here. So yes, there we go, it works. Essentially what's happening now is our server is live now. We're live on the internet. We issued our address. It took us to the default Apache page. So that is good news. Now we're going to jump over and back into our domain. So now what we need to do is we need to associate our domain name with that external IP address. So when you type this in your web browser, it knows where to point it to. So right here under our domain, Feral Quality Carpentry, we're going to go into the DNS settings. Don't worry about this. We're going to leave name servers as it is. We're going to use Google's name servers. Don't worry about registered host or synthetic records. We're going to jump down to custom resource records. For our first entry, pretty much leave it all default. Leave the @ symbol, leave leave 1 hour. IPv4 address is going to be the same address we just pasted into the browser. So we're going to paste that here, we're going to add it. Okay, there we go, successfully saved changes. Now we're going to enter one more record here. This time we're going to put our top level domain, which will be feralqc.com. Oh, I'm sorry, point of this is we want to add this www in front of it. And I'll explain that in a second. CNAME, that stands for canonical name, domain name. Now we're just going to put feral without the triple W in front of it, qc.com. So what's happening here is that this is the top level domain name. Notice there is no www in front of it. You can just enter this in the browser. That'll take you to the page. But for the sake of how the internet works, there's other prefixes that can go in front. We can have an FTP, file transfer protocol. There's some other things. So what we're doing is we're creating a record to say when somebody enters this www feralqc.com that it still will point to this top level domain. Let's add it, and bingo, we're good to go. So this works a couple of ways. Sometimes it takes some time, some hours, some 24 hours for these changes, these DNS changes, to propagate through the internet. Just for them to, if this was a website that was already up and running, say I had this site going for a year and I got in here and made these changes, it will take some hours for them to go into effect. But since this is a brand new domain, they should immediately go into effect. So we're going to go to a new tab, and what we want to happen here is we're going to enter our address. We'll start two different ways. We'll go feralqc.com, and in the perfect world it should point us to that default Debian index page. So let's see what happens. There we go, we're good. That was our first record we created. Our second record we created will be www.feralqc.com. Bingo, takes us back to the same page, so we know our DNS settings are good to go. And I think I'm gonna cut this video off right now. Our Apache server is configured, our ownership is configured, our permission rights are configured. We know it's working because we entered the raw external IP address, took us to this default page. Now we just finished with pointing our domain to that external address, and it's all working properly. So I'm going to cut it off here, and there'll be one more final video where we have to start setting things up to actually transfer our HTML and CSS files. You know, those are the files that you actually design these web pages with. And that'll wrap it up. We'll have free hosting from Google with just a little bit of work, and hopefully y'all learn something. I'll see you soon.